pressure to transition to a low-carbon economy is having a tangible effect on global transport systems, from shipping to Europe's rail network to urban travel. We'll be exploring all three topics in this episode of Carbon Shift. Sustainable transport is set to overtake driving in the world's 30 biggest cities. Private cars are currently used for over 50% of all trips. Researchers say that will drop to around 45% by 2030. Kantar surveyed more than 200,000 residents in cities from New York to Nairobi. Public transport, cycling, or walking combined will make up 49% of city journeys by the next decade, a global tipping point towards sustainable travel.
Previously, cities were built around a certain mean of transport. So you had car-centric cities, you had bike-centric cities, and we see a shift. We see it already, and it will be enforced that cities more and more understand that they need to build cities around the people.
More than 50% of the world's population lives in cities. That's expected to rise to almost 70% by 2050. So pressure for space, gridlocks, and pollution are driving city planners against cars in favor of bike sharing or electric transport. Younger city dwellers especially are embracing new ways to get around. Some 40% of people globally are now open to new forms of travel. But cities need to invest more in new tech, like digital payments and sharing programs.
Going here by train because I don't fly for climate reasons. It takes a bit longer, but it's worth it.
As people shift away from more carbon-heavy car and air travel, Europe's railway companies are seeing big windfalls. Last year, Germany's Deutsche Bahn received a generous boon from the government. Europe's largest railway operator, by track length, secured a funding deal which adds up to $96 billion over the next 10 years. The program is part of Germany's concerted effort to reduce CO2 emissions.
Und als Weltgemeinschaft dazu aufgerufen, den globalen Temperaturanstieg unter 2 Grad zu halten, damit wir wenigstens die schlimmsten Folgen des Klimawandels vermeiden können. Und natürlich muss der Verkehrssektor auch einen Beitrag leisten. Energieeffiziente Fahrzeuge, alternative Antriebe, intelligente Verkehrsleitsysteme.
While the government's imposing surcharges on domestic flights, Deutsche Bahn says it will benefit from tax cuts on train tickets, with an extra $22 billion in revenue by 2030. The company plans to use the extra cash to buy 30 new high-speed trains by 2023 to cater for the expected growth in passenger numbers. Deutsche Bahn's carbon-busting investment also earned it an upgraded AA rating from S&P, meaning it can finance its plans at cheaper rates. Decarbonizing shipping comes with a $1 trillion price tag. The world's maritime fleet accounts for 2.2% of global carbon dioxide emissions. That's even more than aviation, at 2%. The reason? A whopping 90% of world trade is actually transported by sea. But the UN still wants the CO2 that produces halved by 2050, and the eventual cost will be between $1 trillion and $1.4 trillion. That's a potential bill of $70 billion annually for the next 20 years.
Our analysis shows that we will see a rapid and disruptive move towards a new zero-carbon system, and that will mean that for the fossil-aligned assets that exist at the moment, they will need either a large amount of change and modification or they will become obsolete.
Just 13% of spending would be on board ships, though. Most of the other 87% would actually be spent on shore, on low-carbon production facilities, storage, and infrastructure, with ammonia likely to be the zero-carbon fuel of choice. The overall cost would shoot up to $1.9 trillion if the shipping industry fully decarbonized by 2050. But simply securing that kind of investment won't be easy, because banks are tightening their lending to the maritime industry.